Hi, I'm Ahava Tag. Today, I'm joined by my very smart friend, Brad Monks, to talk about healthcare website challenges and opportunities. You've got questions, we've got answers. Brad, thank you so much for being here and joining me.
Pleasure.
You've been in this business for 2 decades, so you have seen trends come and go. What's the biggest challenge or opportunity you see healthcare organizations facing with their websites today?
Well, the challenge that people in the healthcare industry, especially healthcare marketers, have with their websites, I think, is really relative to their relationship with it and how it fits kind of within their overall um, portfolio of different initiatives. So there's a bunch of ads, going on one side. Then there's the kind of basic information about, the hospital, the health system. Then we want to create some more timely content, and we want to also help people make that transaction happen. I was talking with Sean Gross the other day, and he was talking about how 90% of the people on your website are not actually going to book an appointment or go and log into their portal. And so, are they actually just lost people? Is there a way to engage them through that experience? And I think being strategic about how you're approaching your website, and I know this is something that's really important for you as well, like on your side of how can we be more strategic about how we think about the experience and how people are interacting with digital in every kind of step of the way. And I think that part is the most difficult one to kind of get right, because there's so many people pulling the covers in all kinds of different directions. There's budgets are kind of shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And how do you get those quick wins? And I understand that every executive now is like, oh, well, AI is going to do this for, half of the cost and faster and better, right?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Exactly, right? But at the end of the day, it's still a human problem. You got to understand how people want to interact with a website. And I think that kind of going step by step and not wanting to, that the crawl, walk, run thing where, oh, well, I want now to have my website be 100% kind of personalized of this. Well, if you still don't have a mechanism to book appointments online, start with that, right? And so a lot of hospitals are on very different levels of maturity in regards to digital. And I think being more strategic on all those levels, but especially in the medium to lower levels of maturity, is super important, because you don't want to waste those dollars on, fluff.
Yeah. So I think if I asked a hospital marketer, what's the biggest challenge on your website, a lot of them would say physician scheduling. That's really where they would go. But when I look at their websites, I see such obvious, easy changes to make to their website pages and templates that would really drive so much more money into their systems. I'll give you an example from today. We're working with a client, and they took us to their cardiac arrhythmias page, which is really specialty care. Your heart beats too fast, it beats too slow.
Right.
They have to diagnose it, and they have to give you some sort of, either surgical intervention or medical intervention. And the request a specialist button was in the top left-hand corner, complete banner blindness. But then in the middle of the page, there was make an appointment with a primary care specialist. And somebody used the wrong template and put the content there and didn't think through what is the process for the patient in this moment of, I need to see a specialist. I can request the appointment. Okay, I can't make the appointment right now, but that's a great way to move specialty care along, because you've now captured this person into your system. And that's where I'm bothered, because I feel like we want to tackle these big things. Physician scheduling, you just got to figure it out. However the best way you can figure it out.
Yeah.
But using the right template for the right page, that should be simple, and it's not. And I think that that's where a lot of marketers, and not just in healthcare, go wrong. They want to tackle the big Everest problems, but dude, hike up the hill behind your house.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking, and it's two very specific problems. One about the kind of banner blindness, and I think that's part of the way the interface was thought out, and maybe that's not the best place to put the call to action, and I think that's super important. But using the right template at the right time, I think that's an interesting, because we do a lot of help on the marketing operations side of things, right? So it's not so much just designing the website the right way, but then when you're going to be using it day in, day out, right? Are you doing the right thing? How are you going to make sure you're using the right feature or the right block that appears at the right place, and updating your content? So the whole governance behind that, we do a lot of kind of checking out. We always think about improving the front end for the customer, but we always forget about improving the back end for the page editors. And how is this going to be easy to find the pages I need to edit? How am I not duplicating entries like 5 times because I have to update this thing? And right now, these are kind of cases we don't think about with AI, but this could actually be like, hey, before I publish a page, maybe there's some kind of AI script that can automatically go through the page, just kind of parse it and say, is this content relevant? Does this page correspond to the template of the other pages in this section? And this is kind of little prompts you can add into the back end of your content management system. And some are more flexible than others in their approach to how you can manage that back end. But once you can add those little insert quick, checklists that are included into the flow of content publishing, that can just reduce the amount of errors. And again, it's going to create those conversions that are going to the right place and not going to primary care when you're trying to go to more a specialist, et cetera. Right?
Yeah, I mean, and they were looking at the page like, wow, we didn't even know that this was the wrong template that was being used, because whoever put that page up probably was just somebody who was a CMS author and wasn't instructed, like you said, with the proper governance. Or it was one template and it got migrated over and it didn't get migrated properly. No shade on anyone, because the bottom line is that this is really complicated stuff, but it's simple stuff. And we don't spend enough time trying to solve the simple problems. We're just always reaching for the bigger problems, which also need to get solved. But sometimes solving the simple problems really can make a huge difference in the ROI.
We're preaching to the choir here, but I mean, getting that content to be easily legible, not with these kind of convoluted words, right? Or these technical clinical terms, right? Yeah. And just say, hey, I want to, find a specific doctor for this, and words like that, as opposed to these, like, where am I?
Double board certified.
Think about what I'm supposed to do, then something's gone wrong, right? And if the page is like 5 scrolls down and like, where do I have to click? There's a problem, right?
Yeah. And also recognizing like different users and their behaviors. Some people are going to ask AI, some people are going to go through Google, some people are going to migrate there through an email they got from you. So it's really understanding that also. It's complex and there's a lot of different variations. How do you see technology evolving to help providers and patients?
I'm excited about, how we can leverage potentially AI within the context of existing websites and how they're built. And I think one way to explore this, for example, is, and when we say, AI, there's all these kind of ideas that pop up to everybody's mind, but it could be just like, hey, in the search box, if I can be more specific about what I want to do in the search box of the hospital, because a lot of people are going to go to the hospital page, they're going to be lost, they don't know what to look for, they're going to type into that search box. And if they can write a question like they can write now in ChatGPT or in Google, and that the search engine understands what you're trying to say and then can provide answers that seem relevant, that can identify which facets or categories of type of information you might want to search for, I think that could really optimize the flow of people through these websites. I think that there's also an element of potentially we're going to be bringing back a bit more about what can I anticipate? How's my experience going to be when I go to this health system? Or because if more of the information that's more basic is going to move towards the AI kind of
you mean the top of the funnel educational content?
Exactly. So when you get on, like, what's going to differentiate your system from the other system, right? Of course, there's the kind of star ratings for each provider or whatever, but when you're going to be, then they're going to have like a bunch of them are going to be 4.5, right? And then you're going to say, which health system should I go to? Then when you're going to go on these websites, you're going to want to see that experience. What does it look like to, what do the halls feel like? What are the care? And I think there's maybe a lot of opportunity on how to show the experience of coming to our specific system versus another one. And in that differentiation factor, even though it's more transactional, you got to understand the brand and the feel really fast on why am I going to choose this one for that one. I think that's a potential road. I still, everything's in movement right now with AI and those Google summaries, but I feel that could be a direction that things could take where I want to feel the experience more.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. So we've been talking a lot about this. If you're creating content, it should be middle of the funnel and bottom of the funnel content. Yeah. Not to say your top of the funnel content isn't important, but make sure that those pages are strategic and pushing people through the decision chain. So I agree with you 100%. I wish we talked about, the ability for providers to talk differently to patients, using AI to say like, okay, I have to explain this complicated thing to a patient. What are the words that I should use to do that? Like, I think that could really help providers, because some of them, it is hard for them to sort of get down to the basics that people really understand. And I think that that's another way that they can use technology. I also think for them, they spend so much time on their paperwork. Like if you could have AI scripts for them, that would just like make life easier. I think it would be
for sure.
Again, simple things, but things that make a difference. Those are the things that make a difference.
I think that sounds simple, but it seems to me very difficult. Not very difficult is probably not the right word, but if I'm a provider and I have to interact differently with my patients, right? That's a whole behavior change, right? That's change management.
That's what AI scribes are designed to do, right? They're taking
Right.
the notes for the doctor, so the doctor isn't typing the notes in, and instead the doctor's speaking to the patient. And if there is something complex, that the doctor can say, give me a second, and like ask AI to explain it in a way like step by step.
That's
Which a
okay.
lot,
That's interesting. There
yeah,
have
it's
to
a
be
lot,
like a level of empathy on the doctor's side to understand
right.
that they're not understanding, all these clinical terms that I'm using that I feel very confident and professional in using, right? But that the other person is like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, I think some doctors are really good at it and some doctors just aren't. And it
Right.
has a lot to do with training, experience, patience level, what time of day it is, and
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
9 o'clock, they're really clear. At 5 o'clock, they're like, how many times do I have to explain the same thing? So, and then I think also people sometimes are afraid to sound dumb in front of their doctor, but you got to ask the questions you got to ask. So,
Well, what I'm seeing is it's more the other side of things where it's not so much the provider who's adapting the way they're talking with the patient. Of course, they're more with the ambient recordings, they're going to be able to talk a bit more with the patient. But I feel it's more the patients that are pre-researching a lot of stuff and like, how should I talk about this to my doctor? What terms should I use to be more specific? And sometimes, and again, this gets, higher level and more, potentially even political. But, when you're arriving at the doctor's office and then you're kind of almost trying to get your doctor to prescribe to you what you've researched, right?
yeah,
And in theory, you should just kind of give the symptoms and they're going to give you, oh, I think this might be the problem and this might be, how we can solve it. And we were living that on the other side of the equation where, we often have our clients come to us and say, I need you to fix this on the website, add this blog thing on my website,
yeah.
add this search bar to my website. And like, maybe that's not actually what's going to solve the problem that you currently have.
I think the most important thing in communication is to try to solve for X. What is the person really asking me?
Yeah.
And that requires you to ask the person, what are you really asking me? And what is the real business problem here? What is the real user interaction problem here? And sometimes I do think that we're solving for Y and not solving for X. In fact, the very premise of my question is I asked you, how do you see technology evolving to serve patients and providers, or how does it get better at helping them? And I think that one of the things we just don't talk about enough is the more technology you introduce, the more complication you can have.
Yeah.
Just even today, when you were signing into the Zoom, whatever the setting was. And that's the interaction cost. And I think it's one of the reasons everybody's so tired all the time is just all this technology where our brains are not adapted to use it like this. And so we're tired a lot of the time. And so
Yeah.
it makes us less patient and less able to absorb large quantities of information. We have less of an attention span. And so one of the things that I think the question should be is, how can we make technology more transparent in the
Mhm.
interaction so that the
Yeah.
human interaction, the experience, it's like kind of the same thing. The experience can become paramount and the technology is just there to support that human
Absolutely.
relationship.
100%.
And
Yeah.
that's how I think we should be thinking about it. And I don't think that we are. We're just thinking about the tool. Oh, the bright, shiny object, let's run toward,
Yeah.
instead of
100%.
thinking about how are we really going to use this thing to make us feel more human.
For sure. Yeah.
What's one quick win or practical tip you'd give somebody who is looking to improve their online digital presence right now?
Every conference I've been to, everybody has been talking about how, is AI, gobbling up all my SEO and nobody's coming to my website, like 30, 40% less visits. And so a lot of people are scared about that. And I know that you've talked about this on your conversations in the past. And I feel that if we know that search engines are going to be trying to find, the LLMs are going to try to find information on your website and you want to be competitive there. If you focus on making sure your website is, SEO friendly and LLM friendly, there's a portion of that which is writing it correctly, which is about, the question answer formats and whatnot. But the other part is making sure that it's coded correctly so that it's easy for those AIs to parse your website. There's, a lot of talk about the schema structures, schema.org. But then also just kind of the basics that work for SEO are usually, I'd say 75% valid for AI optimization. And so what I'd say is a really quick win, and it's something that's not going to add extra work for your internal team, right? As a healthcare marketer, because it's something that your website agency or team is going to be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to tweak the code a little bit, make this easier for AI and for search engines to analyze and understand and what the intent is behind these pages. And that's just going to boost your future viability, right? And because everything's turning around that AI parsing of your website right now.
The one thing I do have to give kudos to Google for is best practices build on best practices build on best practices. So if they're not going to tell you to do something and then like switch it the next day. You know, they want to award the people who listened to them 10 years ago. So yeah, I agree with that.
I think that the danger, like maybe the flip side of this, right, is that people try to do like they did maybe 10, 15 years ago to kind of trick,
game it.
You know, the SEO and like, oh, I'm going to put white text on white background to get all the keywords in there. And I think people are going to try to force feed kind of content that's AI related into pages. But I think that kind of arms race is going to be a faster losing race than it was maybe in the past, because AI just learns so fast that they're going to try to do things that it might work for 6 months and then that's it. It's not going to work anymore.
But it wouldn't be the game if people didn't try.
Yeah, for sure.
And we've never done that, and I've never believed in that. And I think slow and steady wins the race. And you know, our outcomes can prove that. But I think you're going to find, you know, you're going to have AI optimization experts and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And you just see that come and go.
And it's another one of those trends, right? You were asking me earlier, what are the trends going on? Like I've seen everybody want a Facebook page. Everybody wants a blog. Everybody wants SEO. Now everybody wants an AI.
Remember infographics? They were hot for like a summer. Yeah.
I think that the challenge we're having right now is, since everything is going to be machine created, there's a lot of stuff that's machine created. So there's a higher volume, right? And it's so how to cut through that noise. And part of that is hey, let's, you know, optimize our content and the code to make it more visible. But then there's that other part we were talking about earlier about how do we make this more of a human experience of understanding what am I going to expect when I go to your health system versus a competitor? What am I going to feel, right? And if we're able to get that and then make it super easy to make that transaction on top of that, I mean, that would be a fantastic experience.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. You know, it's really interesting. I watched recently, I had to, you know, research a specific doctor for somebody in my family. And I watched a video and he was so great in the video, but in the corner of the video in the room, and I don't know what happened. This was like a professionally produced video. There was like a bunch of camera equipment there. Okay. And it just like turned me off so much. I was like, ugh. You know, I don't know, either maybe as a marketer, it just really bothered me, but it didn't make me trust the doctor as much as I think I should have.
But at least you saw that, like, at least there was a video. I was really impressed. I forget which huge health system that I looked at, but every doctor, almost every doctor, had like a 1-minute video clip of the doctor presenting themselves. And immediately, I mean, your subconscious mind within 5 seconds, like, I trust this doctor, I don't, I want to go to this. And like that for me is like, how come every health system is not doing this for every single one of their physicians?
Because it's expensive.
Yeah, it's a 1-minute video. They can just bring an iPhone, right, and record them.
People don't want to do that. It's really fascinating. You know, we have these questions with clients all the time. Like, is cheap and dirty going to impact your brand? I think you have to research your audience before you know. So
I don't know, because I want to meet that doctor before I go to, you know, book an appointment with them. The star rating is one thing. Then if I can actually see what that doctor, how they interact, like that would be amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think I think it's very important, but I think it can also hurt. Like in this case where why was that video equipment just sitting there in the corner? It made no sense to me. Where can people find you, Brad?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me on my Symmetrist.com website. And yeah, I'd love to answer any questions people have.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me, friend. Thank you to our viewers for joining in. I hope you got the answer you needed today. If you still have any burning questions, please leave them in the comments or email me at ahava.leaptag@ahamediagroup.com. See you next time.